Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this latest edition of Read TFOS, where I take old stories I've narrated and update them to modern audio standards. This particular story is called Teddy Bear, written by Lostfol. Morley sat staring at his senses, not quite believing what he was seeing. As he ran his long fingers over the smooth skin of his head, his pupilless eyes looked on in disbelief. His race, the Observers, were an ancient spacefaring race. They traveled the galaxy, watching the younger races and monitoring their progress. His naked eyes could pick up on the energy halos pulsing off this object. They were immense, almost like the radiation coming off the sun. But this was electrical fields. Not even shield systems lit up as large of a region as this construction did. Long-term life should have been impossible in this system with no habitable planets. This system was a graveyard. A war between two powerful races left all the planets little more than chunks of rock, ore, and ice. Remnants of the lost ships formed a ring of ruined wrecks floating around in the system. Nothing should have been able to survive here amongst the asteroids and wrecks. Yet, life was sitting in front of him. He ran the scans, fearing his race's natural ability to see the energy was failing him. He was in the system doing a routine observation mission. Almost immediately upon entering it, though, he had noticed something strange. This energy field in the asteroid belt had appeared since his last visit. At first, his eyes had been stung by the bright glow, almost like a small sun. But it dimmed, and what looked like a wrecked ship was at the center of the pulsating field. He could see movement around it, and the light wore on. It was rotating at a high speed for something habitable, almost like a station for a high-gravity species. His scans indicated life was aboard that ship. He couldn't see how. As he sat in his single-seat vessel, he debated if he should try and contact this mysterious ship. No sane race he could think of would set up that close to an asteroid belt in a contraption like this, nor had he ever seen such energy come off an artificial construction. As he was starting to reach for his communicator, it shocked him as it sprang to life. They had seen his small observation ship. This was impossible, he thought. He had some of the best cloaking technology in the galaxy in that ship. He felt his skin flush and knew it was dark gray with apprehension. He went ahead and opened the frequency. Immediately, his view of the system shifted to that of a mammalian creature. It had long hair coming from its head and face, but wore a protective suit that had visible patches on it. Even though worn, it was functional. The lines in the creature's face left the impression of carved stone more than flesh. Norley, surprised at its appearance, listened as it began to talk. He could see his ship's computer trying to figure out what it was talking to. "Evening, why are you hovering so close to my home? Not planning on raiding me, are you?" The voice drew out the standard galactic words in a unique way, almost sounding as though it was speaking slow. Norley swallowed hard. The ship's computer had settled on human. He had, of course, heard of them. They had fascinated the Observers since they were first noticed. Their home planet was a high-gravity world, giving them strength. He seemed to remember that their omnivorous diet gave them height as well, but he had never actually met one before.
"Hello, I'm Norley of the Observers and was curious about what I was seeing. Your ship looks like it took some damage. Do you need help?"
Norley decided the prudent thing was to be as polite as possible. Humans had a fierce reputation. They had been expanding on the galactic scene ever since they shot down those fool raiders. The raiders had never expected that they would end up being reverse-engineered. Humanity used what they learned to explode out of their system. Unlike most races, though, they didn't leave their planet in any single coordinated effort. It started as uncoordinated departures from a dozen or so places on their homeworld. Then, to everyone's amazement, a space rush was on. Humans streamed from the planet in a way no other race had before them. The humans themselves didn't even try to control the dispersal of their population. The Observers had already been discussing this phenomenon. Humans seemed to pop out of nowhere on every uninhabited planet they found. Other non-unified species had made it to space, but most moved in groups. Humans tended to scatter when placing their colonies. Almost no logic appeared, and while some failed, most were quite successful. "I think all is well here, but you're welcome to dock if you like. Been a while since I've had many visitors to talk to," the man mumbled. He appeared distracted. Given that Norlay's job was to explore and report the odd things he found so they could be documented in his race's archives, he felt some sense of obligation to go aboard, if for no other reason than to report what this human was doing. As his ship approached, he started having serious reconsiderations. This was not a station, but part of a great warship that humans had converted into a station. The warship appeared of Kotek design, at least most of it was. Other observers had said humans called the Kotek ships the Enterprise. This name came from a resemblance to a fictional human show. The warship was missing most of its original lower and rear decks. Damage likely left over from the Kotek's war with the Choctaw. The patchwork welding and wiring seemed to cover the exterior. In places, he saw odd constructions, like circles of metal wrapped in wire. These thrummed with energy as he looked at them, each almost too bright to look at. As he approached, he realized that some parts of the construction were Choctaw also. He found the docking arm, despite the fact that it was on the wrong side of the ship. What looked like some small, overbuilt ship hung from it. Whereas his ship's design was graceful and sleek, this one was its polar opposite. The small ship was overbuilt, as though designed to survive atmospheric reinsertion. It was blocky and sturdy. His ship's computer could not classify the ship or its capabilities. He pulled up to the extended docking arm, which was from the Choctaw capital ship. As his ship docked, he heard the shush of air equalizing. The system was airtight and functional. A quick check told him the atmosphere was breathable. So he opened the ship's port and ventured into the construction. His skin paled with the apprehension of what he would find. As soon as he entered the station, he was hit by the gravity. The construction spin was generating more than his species would find comfortable. He wasn't even on the outer rings, but it was almost overwhelming. As he looked around, he could see cables thicker than his arms. These seemed to run everywhere, pulsing with the halos of energy. He couldn't begin to imagine what could use that much around this monstrosity. For not the first time, he began to wonder how such a thing could generate so much energy. He was also surprised to find that the hall he was in had many of the same weld and patch marks covering it. Again, a mixture of technology with some parts of Choctaw and Kotek ships. Others were not easy to identify. A small robot of some sort shot by him as he walked into the hallway. The creation had no covers and wires everywhere. It was busy decontaminating and cleaning everything it found. Norlay's misgivings about coming aboard were starting to grow. For lack of a better description, he was in a station. But it was a station made from salvage and housing a race that shouldn't be able to live here. Curiosity drove him onwards, though. As he walked down the corridor, he could hear airlocks opening ahead of him and closing behind him. At least they took some safety procedures, though this many airlocks seemed extreme. The gravity at this point was crushing, but he was nearing the outer edge of the station. He finally found a large room. The store had opened onto its upper deck. One entire side of the room was open to the surrounding space, only a shield keeping the atmosphere in. With relief, he noticed signs of an airlock here too. He could smell the metallic tang of ozone. It complemented the thin coat of metal dust and grease that covered everything. This was a workshop or a laboratory of some sort, and in the center of it, the hair-covered human. In person, the human was much larger than he had expected, more than twice his height. Its head was roughly the same size, with smaller eyes. The body was large, though, with a heavy, dense build, and the eyes had apertures that focused its vision. The human didn't seem to notice Norlay's entrance, focused on the object before him. Norlay is immediately struck by the energy radiating off of the human. All other races the observers had ever noticed absorbed energy. Most creatures' bodies only drew enough for nutrition to supply their immediate needs. Anything more was inefficient. He was trying to remember what type of world humans had come from. He remembered it was extreme, but to his race, these humans would glow in the dark. This was a sign of danger in most worlds the observer had studied. Norley jumped as he heard, "You're just gonna stand around there gawking?" Then, with a momentary pause, the human fixed his look on Norley with a very wry smile. "Wait, your kind is called the Observers, right? Forget I asked that. Come on in. So what are you looking for? Trade?" Around the room were many tables. Tools of all types seemed to cover them, along with bits of unidentifiable projects. There were also displays everywhere, with various schematics or images on them.
I was curious. This system is a dead system. As I passed through, I couldn't help but notice your station. Mind if I ask what model it is?
At this, the human started to laugh, still working on the device in front of him. "I called it a Model Jack. I am Jack Turman. I built it." Norley could feel his skin shifting color in confusion. Stations were extreme efforts for all the races. A sole individual building one couldn't be possible. The door on the opposite side of the station opened up, and a female human walked in. She was exposing her teeth as she put a cup of steaming liquid down next to Jack, then looking up at Norley.
"My name is Sarah Turman. Don't mind Jack's manners. He's a teddy bear."
Norley was not sure what a teddy bear was, but didn't want to ask. He had already noticed how easy both humans managed to move in this high gravity. It was clear the humans were powerful.
"It is a pleasure to meet you. I am Norley of the Observers. I was passing through the system when I noticed your station."
Norley felt his skin tighten in amazement at the blast of energy that came off the female human at this.
"Oh, it's wonderful, isn't it? Jack built it with the help of us and our neighbors."
Norley was still marveling at how the aurora of energy around the humans seemed to fluctuate, as though their moods could change it. Remembering to be as polite as possible,
"Mind if I ask what type of station this is? I'm having a tough time classifying it."
Even as he said that, he saw drones coming in from the asteroids. As they dropped off their loads, he realized that they were also coming from the wrecked ships. A constant stream of them came through, dropping their loads off in bins along one wall. He could see the blast of heat each time something dropped in this ore bin. He was shocked to realize that they were processing it immediately. "It's our home," Jack called out without turning around.
"Honey, be nice," Sarah rebuked. "Jack is right that it is our home, but it also is where he does his research and inventions. Jack is not much of a people person."
Jack huffed behind her, but his aurora grew a bit.
"But is amazing with xenotechnology. He also developed the station to serve as a powered hub for the surrounding colony. It also serves as protection against raids. Lately, we've been upgrading it. We're trying to give us more processing and manufacturing capability."
Norley realized what he had missed before his shock. Sarah had said neighbors and now colony.
"What colony?"
Norley asked, his skin growing moist at his fear. How could he have missed something so important during his scan of the system?
"By the mining colony, there are over 10,000 people living in the asteroids near the station. They mine the surrounding ones and scavenge technology from the wrecked ships. They even have a farming setup inside a couple of the larger asteroids. There are enough ice asteroids for us to get ample water," Sarah explained.
Norley's focus had shifted when Jack moved, his attention immediately drawn to what Jack was working on. It was a Kotek planet cracker, one of the most powerful weapons in the galaxy. Norley's color shifted as panic flowed through his many small hearts. He froze, torn between running for his ship and fear of sudden movements. His skin was now pale in fright. Sarah noticed what he was staring at.
"Oh, don't worry about that. He's just converting it into a generator. It's an amazing amount of energy these hold. They make great power sources."
Norley looked at her and Jack in disbelief. He could see the energy radiating off the device. Most races completely avoided systems if they knew any of these bombs were there. The source of the station's power now made sense.
"How do you have many of these you have converted?"
Sarah let out another laugh as she showed her teeth. A smile, he would later learn. Norley had figured out that this was their species' way of showing humor. "Of course, we use at least 10 in the station to power everything. There are extra units to supply power to the miners and power our defense systems.
The sun here is too weak for solar to be much help, but look at all the resources around here.
Norley was quiet for a moment. It was coming together now. Unlike other races that built specialized stations, the human station was a hub that served many purposes. One of those is a power plant made from some of the most dangerous bombs known. His skin was turning a darker grey, and his curiosity began to override his fear. Not sure that he wanted to ask, but felt that he had to.
How do you get power to the asteroids?
That was easy, Jack replied, his focus so complete his tone was emotionless as they continued to work. The shield technology we found in the scrap was all we needed to build our transmitters. We used electrical transmission similar to the old Tesla coils, but without unintended arcing. We found in those derelicts are a more efficient way to generate a large electrical field. The receivers are then installed in anything we want to charge. Done, Jack announced with pride as he stepped back. To Norley, the device still looked like a bomb, but he saw the terminals on it now. His mind was spinning. How could these creatures not only survive, but thrive out here? How long had they been here? How had they avoided detection until now? The questions were racing through his mind. As Jack turned around, looking at Norley, those questions came to an abrupt stop. He instinctively felt the fear any prey species does facing a predator. This large, dense creature was regarding him with a look that concerned him. Now, Norley, right? If you don't mind, I'd like to know why you observed my home. Norley didn't expect this question. His race was observers. It was what they did. They observed and recorded, little more than the historians and librarians of the galaxy.
That is what my race does. We observe others and learn, he started.
He could tell the human was suspicious. His aurora was changing colors. That confirmed that the moods impacted the aurora.
We are a peaceful race,
he was quick to add. Jack seemed to regard him some more, then shook his head. Well, guess the old stories about greys were true then. Do you share what you observe with others? Jack's aurora was shifting hue again, almost seeming to be incitement.
We have used it to trade with before, but we generally store it. May I ask, how did your engineers create designs for parts they had never seen?
Norley asked. He was still fascinated by the blending and cobbling of equipment. Jack picked up his cup of coffee and took a sip. Norley could see the steam coming off the liquid. The energy radiating from the surface indicated a temperature, and from what he saw, it was high enough to cause severe injury. Yet this human was drinking it as though it had no effect. They didn't. Out here, you have to be a bit of a DIYer.
DIYer? What does that mean?
Norley asked. Do it yourself. You take what you have and figure out how to make what you want, Jack replied. Norley found himself pondering this. He was standing in the middle of a power plant and home. They were using weapons as generators and broadcasting it. They had an unknown number of homes hidden in the asteroids around them he failed to find scanning. This was a flourishing human colony, not dependent on shipments from supporting worlds. He started to realize that these people were independent. They didn't rely on a world to send them. They left it to seek space.
Do be polite, Jack. We haven't had guests in a while, chided Sarah.
Jack picked up a device from the table. It had a strange assortment of parts. Some were humans, but others were copies of Kotek and Chiktar devices. As he installed some parts from the nearby workbench, Norley watched. As soon as the receiver went in, he stared, amazed. The energy was flowing into it from the area around the station. Its battery was charging as it sat there on the bench.
What you have achieved here is amazing, but I have to ask, why? Why did you pick a broken system to build your home?
Norley was more fascinated than ever.
Seemed like a good place when we got here. You have asteroids of any type that you could want and scrap technology floating around. No one seems to mind us being here, and outside of the occasional pirate raid, little to worry about, Sarah replied. She described this dead system as though it was fertile land to grow plants on. You've said that you've had raids?
Norley decided to change the line of questions. He was still struggling to understand why they would go out there unprepared. Their humans didn't even seem to have support. They were that confident that they could do it themselves. Jack started to laugh. Sure have. Want to watch the last one? Before Norley could respond, Jack had already activated the view screen near him. Immediately, Norley recognized these weren't pirates but Chorotek Warfleet. He watched as they began to approach in an attack formation. As the first ship fired off a shot, a flash of light came across the station. He was thankful this was a recording, as it was powerful enough to have blinded any of his kind had they seen it. With that, all the nearby asteroids seemed to light up, and to Norlay's shock, so too did all the scrap warships. The energy bolts the Chortek fired seemed to only feed this radiating electric field. The battle was over almost as fast as it began. The Chortek ships likely never saw the relics come online. The graveyard was alive and firing upon approaching ships. Asteroids were also moving on intercept courses. The Chortek fleet was completely destroyed. It was the fastest space battle Norlay had ever seen. It didn't even last a minute. He looked back at the humans, horror making his skin pale and cold again.
Well, if you'll excuse me, I think I've taken up enough of your time,
Norlay said. He wanted to get away. Most species would have killed an observer who had seen too much. These humans were insane, though they made no threats. To his surprise, they didn't even seem to mind him leaving. They had even invited him back. With all that he had learned, they didn't consider what they did unique or worry about him being a threat. As he reached his ship, he noticed his ship was fully recharged. The human's field had recharged the battery of his ship. It was like he had never departed from his observation mission. The humans had been kind and offered to trade and even given him some provisions. They even suggested trading goods for knowledge. He had given them a star map of the surrounding systems with notes on what was there. Norlay didn't see any harm could come from that. Looking up at the scrap field, he now realized it was larger than it was the first time he scanned the system years ago. He recognized pieces of several of the ships from the recording. He also started to identify many newer ships in the debris field. As he approached the edge of the system, he looked back. He was in time to see the energy field around the small station expand far enough to cover the scrapyard. Drones began moving again all over the asteroids and ships. As he prepared for warp, he sent a note to his superiors detailing what had happened. He marked the system down as human-controlled also. At the end he wrote, "I suggest we establish trade and normal relations with the DIY caste of humanity. Must watch this species closer, as they are more capable than initial reports indicate. For such a young race, they will leave a mark on this galaxy." With that note off, he searched their archives for Teddy Bear. He learned it is a stuffed toy resembling a bear humans give their children. So he searched for Bear. The videos he got back left him even more afraid of Jack and humanity. As the ship jumped away, Jack and Sarah uploaded the system map to humanity's galactic network, the same place they found their DIY instructions. Settlers throughout the race studied it, looking for that perfect opportunity. End of story. I would just like to thank the T5 supporters: Bushmaster 117, Casper Arnholtz, Draxzoon WRE, Elijah Silvercross, Gray, John Carrington, and Severin Cerberus. Thank you very much.